Hey everyone, today we're going to continue with chapter 14. In the last few lessons, we learned about the overall general anatomy of the digestive system, and then we learned the overall functions of the digestive system. And we're going to delve a little bit more into the different organs. So today we're going to focus specifically on the organs of the mouth, the pharynx, and the esophagus. Speaking of the mouth, it is also known as your oral cavity. This is a mucous membrane that's lined, and there are several different parts of the mouth. There are the lips, also called the labia or labia. This helps protect the anterior opening, or again, the opening in the front of your mouth, part of your mouth. There are the cheeks, which make the lateral walls. There's the hard and soft palate. Now, hard and soft palate, we did talk about in the respiratory system. This helps separate your oral cavity from your nasal cavity. The hard palate tends to be the anterior roof, and one thing to remember about the hard palate is that it is supported by bone. It's your roof of your mouth. The soft palate, this is more towards the back of your mouth. It's the posterior part of your mouth, and this one's not supported by bone, so it tends to feel more squishy. And then in the very back of your throat, the uvula is a fleshy projection of the soft palate that dangles there towards the back of your throat. Couple other regions of the mouth is the vestibule. This is the space between the lips externally and the teeth and the gums internally. So what that means is if you ever know anybody who chews tobacco, typically this is where they kind of stick the chew. That's the best example I can give of that region. Or example, if you pull your lip down and you have your teeth closed, it's again that region in there. Then we have the oral cavity proper. This is the area contained by the teeth. And last but not least, within your mouth, you have your tongue. And this muscle occupies the floor of your mouth. The tongue is attached at the hyoid bone. And if you guys can't remember what the hyoid bone is, that is going to be the bone that is in the middle of your throat. It doesn't have any direct attachment to another bone. And then the styloid process is on the skull. It's also attached by something called the lingual frenulum. This is on the floor of the mouth and it helps secure the tongue and it limits posterior movements. So, usually people have trouble figuring out what this structure is. So, the lingual frenulum is actually located right here. Again, it does help attach that tongue to the base of your mouth to prevent posterior movement. Couple other things about the anatomy of the mouth. We are going to bring up this idea of tonsils, just like we did with the respiratory system. Tonsils are lymphatic tissue, and their whole function is to fight infection. There are two specifically for the mouth that we did talk about: the palatine, which is located at the back of the oral cavity, and then the lingual, which is located at the base of the tongue. So here is an overall picture of the anatomy of the mouth. I do have a game on my website where you guys can play different labelings of these. So let's just kind of go through it. Again, our oral cavity is this open cavity right here. We first talked about the lips or labia. From here is a good example, an image of your vestibule or vestibule right here between the teeth and the lips. Our lingual frenulum, again, our base of our tongue is anchored there. Here is our tongue. It's showing as a big, strong organ. We also have our hard palate. Notice that it has more of a bony structure here, supported by bone, whereas our soft palate back here is unsupported by bone. And at the very bottom of it dangs the uvula. And then attached off the uvula is your palatine tonsils. And then we have our lingual tonsils back here behind our tongue. From there, just like what we learned with the respiratory system, we're going to have our different pharynxes. So nasopharynx is going to be behind the nasal cavity. We got oral pharynx, which is behind our mouth, and then eventually that will go down to your laryngopharynx near your larynx. From there, one thing about this picture that we're going to see is it can either go down your trachea, which is your air pipe, or it can go down over here, which is your esophagus. And in this lesson, since it's digestive, we're going to focus more on the esophagus part. Again, here is another image of your mouth. We got the hard palate, soft palate, the uvula. We see the palatine tonsils on either side, and then, of course, the tongue. Now, within this, we also need to talk about the pharynx and esophagus. The pharynx is where food passes from the mouth posteriorly into your pharynx, or also known as your throat. Again, your oral pharynx is going to be the posterior part, and your laryngopharynx is below your oral pharynx, and it's going to continue on with the esophagus. The esophagus is sometimes known as your gullet. This is about 10 inches long. It runs from your pharynx of your stomach through your diaphragm. Now we're also going to talk about teeth, because there are specific types of teeth within your body. Teeth help masticate or chew food into smaller pieces. So if you hear the word mastication, it just means chewing your food. Now, humans have two sets of teeth during a lifetime. The first set are deciduous. We call these baby or milk teeth. They appear around 6 months of age. The second one is your permanent teeth. And your permanent teeth start to come in and replace your baby teeth between the ages of 6 and 12. So this is when you lose your teeth, you put it under your pillow for the tooth fairy to come. And all permanent teeth, but your third molars, usually have erupted by the time you finish out adolescence. Those third molars, sometimes called wisdom teeth, usually emerge between ages 17 to 25. And once you have those wisdom teeth in, a full set of teeth is about 32 teeth. Now, sometimes you might have to get your wisdom teeth removed because there's issues or your mouth isn't able to accommodate for that amount of teeth. Here is a good example of we have deciduous or your baby milk teeth versus your permanent teeth when you become an adult. We are going to talk about a few things here. We're going to be talking about the types of teeth as well. So let's get into it. Teeth are classified according to shape and functions. The first one are incisors. These are chisel shaped and they're adapted for cutting. So if I was looking at an example of an incisor, incisors are right here. They're towards the front of your teeth. Notice right here, they are more piercing. They're meant for cutting. Next one are canines. These are more fang-like, used for tearing and piercing. So when we look over here, canines are going to be on either side of your front teeth. Notice here, more tearing and piercing. Next, we have our premolars and molars. These typically have similar functions. Their whole function is to crush and grind. So when we look at your premolars and molars, here are your premolars, and then back here, even bigger ones are your molars. Again, whole point is to crush and grind food. Now we're going to talk about salivary glands. There are 3 pairs of salivary glands that empty secretions, which we call saliva, into the mouth. And the whole point of saliva is to help break down food through chemical digestion. There are different saliva glands. So the first one is your parotid glands. These are found anterior to the ears, so in front of your ears. Often these can get inflamed, and so inflammation of this gland that affects our salivary glands are mumps. And when you get mumps, typically it hurts to open your mouth and chew food. The second one is submandibular glands, and the third one is sublingual glands. One thing to note about these two is that they both empty saliva into the floor of your mouth through very small ducts. And that is the end of today's lesson. In the next one, we will be covering the function of the mouth, pharynx, and esophagus in a little bit more detail. And with that, I hope you guys have a great day.